The inner child is not a metaphor, not a poetic idea, and not a concept reserved for therapy sessions. It is a living echo inside the nervous system, a presence shaped during the earliest years of life, quietly influencing every reaction, every decision, every fear, and every desire. Even when the adult self believes it is fully in control, the inner child sits just beneath the surface, pulling emotional strings with hands so small and so familiar that most people don't even realize the grip they still have. To understand the inner child is to understand why certain situations feel overwhelming, why particular people activate intense emotional waves, and why some patterns have repeated for years despite countless attempts to break them. Imagine a person standing in a room, giving a calm and mature response to the world. But inside that same person, unseen and unheard, a younger self flinches every time a tone of voice sharpens, every time a boundary gets crossed, every time a moment resembles something from long ago. The body reacts before the mind understands, and the reaction is rarely aligned with the present moment. Most adults today navigate life with two timelines running at once: the life they are consciously aware of, and the emotional timeline of a child who did not receive what they needed. The child inside remembers everything the adult has forgotten. Childhood doesn't simply end. It gets stored. It gets woven into muscle tension, breathing patterns, self-protection strategies, expectations of love, and beliefs about worth. Every moment of safety or fear becomes a blueprint for how adulthood will unfold. If the child learned that love was unpredictable, the adult becomes hypervigilant. If the child learned that needs were inconvenient, the adult becomes self-sacrificing. If the child learned that emotions were too big, the adult becomes numb. This is not immaturity. It is code that was written when the brain was still forming, code that the adult self continues to run unconsciously. When someone says, "I don't know why I reacted that way," what they are really saying is, "The child inside me felt unsafe." That child shows up in moments of conflict, in relationships, in silence, in stress, in intimacy, in disappointment, and even in success. Especially in success. Many people think their biggest fear is failure, but the deeper fear is often being seen, being supported, being emotionally held. Success requires vulnerability, and vulnerability awakens the inner child's oldest memory, the fear of being hurt. Consider someone stuck in a cycle of choosing emotionally unavailable partners. The adult says, "This time will be different," while the inner child whispers, "Familiar pain is safer than unfamiliar comfort." The child equates unpredictability with love because unpredictability was present in childhood. The body gravitates toward what it already knows. Or imagine someone who freezes every time conflict arises. The adult self wants to speak up. The child remembers that speaking up led to consequences, so the freeze response takes over before a single word can form. The body freezes in the present to protect a child who no longer lives in that past moment. Sometimes the inner child shows up through anger, sometimes through withdrawal, sometimes through perfectionism, sometimes through chronic self-sabotage. Perfectionism is not an obsession with excellence. It is a child's fear of disappointing someone. Chronic overthinking is not about intelligence. It is a child's attempt to predict danger. People-pleasing is not kindness. It is a child's survival strategy. Emotional detachment is not independence. It is a child's adaptation to avoid emotional overload. The adult self carries strategies that were never meant for adulthood, but no one explained to the inner child that the danger is over. One of the most important truths about the inner child is this: it is not trying to ruin anything. It is trying to protect. Every overreaction is a protection mechanism. Every shutdown is a protection mechanism. Every self-sabotaging behavior is a protection mechanism. And once that is understood, shame begins to soften and compassion begins to grow. The adult self can finally speak to the child self and say, "You did your best, but I can handle things now." Healing the inner child is not about reliving every painful memory. It is about reparenting the emotional responses that were formed during those moments. The mind tries to reason, but the inner child does not heal through logic. The inner child heals through safety, through tone, through gentleness, through validation, through consistency. Healing occurs through building an internal environment the child never had, patient, stable, and emotionally attuned. Let's explore what this actually looks like in real situations. Imagine someone who becomes anxious every time a message is left on read. The adult tries to say, "It's fine, maybe they're busy." But the inner child remembers what silence meant long ago: abandonment, punishment, or unpredictability. The anxiety is not about the message, it is about an echo. Or consider someone who cannot accept compliments. The inner child learned that being praised created pressure, expectations, or ridicule. So praise instantly becomes discomfort, and the body rejects it. These reactions are not flaws, they are memories. One of the clearest signs that the inner child is running your life is emotional time travel. An adult stands in the present, but emotions are pulled back into an old scene. The body reacts to a moment that no longer exists. A tone of voice, a facial expression, even a certain type of silence can become a portal. In those moments, the adult does not respond, the child does. Here is a grounded framework that helps reparent these emotional responses. It is called the SOFT framework, designed to approach the inner child with gentleness rather than judgment. S stands for sense, noticing the emotional shift without trying to immediately control it. When a reaction appears, instead of suppressing it or analyzing it, the adult self pauses and senses the physical cues: the tight chest, the shallow breath, the shaking hands. Those signals are the inner child waving for attention. O stands for observe, observing the instinctive response without labeling it as wrong or dramatic. The inner child reacts emotionally, not logically. Observing gives the reaction space instead of pressure. Observation is permission. F stands for familiarize, connecting the reaction to a familiar pattern rather than the present moment. Asking internally, when did this feeling first appear in life? The inner child often reacts to a repeated emotional theme, not the current situation. Familiarity brings clarity. T stands for tend, offering warmth, reassurance, and grounding breath instead of dismissal. This could look like placing a hand on the heart, taking a slow breath, or saying inwardly, "Safety is here." The inner child responds to tone, not arguments. Tending teaches the nervous system that the danger is no longer real. When this framework is practiced consistently, the inner child begins to feel seen, something that might not have happened decades ago. The nervous system learns that it no longer needs to activate old survival strategies. Emotional triggers become softer. Reactions become slower. Decisions become clearer. The adult self becomes more present. Healing the inner child does not erase the past. It rewrites the emotional meaning of it. Instead of being driven by fear, the adult becomes guided by awareness. Instead of repeating patterns, the adult recognizes them. Instead of shutting down, the adult stays open. The goal is not to silence the inner child, but to integrate it. To let the child rest. To let the adult lead. There is a moment in everyone's journey where they realize that the life they are living is not entirely their own. It is a continuation of childhood survival. And that realization is not defeat. It is liberation. Because once the inner child is understood, life begins to shift. Relationships shift. Boundaries shift. The ability to feel, connect, and trust shifts. The inner child does not disappear with age. Healing is not about becoming someone new. It is about becoming someone whole. A person who can carry the child with gentleness, the adult with strength, and the future with calm trust. If this message resonates, this is the moment to go deeper, to continue exploring the patterns shaping the inner world, to commit to your awakening. And if this path feels right, consider subscribing, liking, and sharing this message so it can reach others who are searching for the same understanding. Every step taken toward healing the inner child is a step taken toward becoming the most grounded, present, and emotionally free version of yourself.